Let me tell you something. I'm a founder, and you can't tell somebody that did all those things to do it different. If I wouldn't have done it the way I did it, there would be no Jay-Z. I'm going to say this, and you ask Jay-Z anytime, there would be no Jay-Z as a rapper if it wasn't for me. He wasn't trying to do it.
He wasn't trying to rap?
No, he was trying. He was rapping with jazz. He had stopped completely. He was hustling.
This is one of the biggest betrayals in hip-hop history, man. A tale that is still painful today. Jay-Z and Damon Dash's downfall isn't only due to their wealth and notoriety. It's about devotion, trust, and how when the industry intervenes, power can shatter brotherhood. People have been discussing what transpired at Roc-A-Fella Records for years. However, Dame recently broke his silence and revealed everything, the true cause of his conflict with Jay-Z. And let's just say that the truth has a greater impact than any rumor. You had to go back to the 1990s when Dame Dash, Jay-Z, and Kareem Biggs Burke created Roc-A-Fella from the ground up to fully get this. No one wanted to sign Jay at the time. Labels were blind to the vision. They claimed he was too Brooklyn, too carefree, and too street. As the hustler that he is, Dame responded, "Forget it, we'll handle it on our own." One block at a time, they began hosting parties, selling CDs out the trunk, and creating a movement. What every rapper now refers to as owning your masters and keeping your freedom was modeled after that autonomous grind. The absurd thing is that the same independence that gave them power also caused them to fall apart. You see, Dame Dash was the talkative one from the start, the arrogant businessman who protects the artists, confronts record executives, and keeps Jay safe from the snakes in the suits. He was the empire's driving force. Jay was the cool-headed killer who was strategic, laser-focused, and always 3 steps ahead. Initially, that equilibrium was effective. Dame was in charge of the business and the streets. Jay was in charge of the music. But things began to change when the money began to come in and reasonable doubt dropped in 1996. When money comes in, you start seeing who people really are, Dame remarked in an interview.
Whenever you hear about like his financial problems and things like that.
Nah, Dame's a hustler. Dame will figure it out. Like, Dame, very smart guy, you know, so he'll figure it out.
Roc-A-Fella was more than simply a label by the early 2000s. It was a realm. They possessed an army of talent, including Kanye West, Cameron, Beanie Siegel, and Memphis Bleek. In an effort to broaden the brand beyond Jay, Dame began signing singers one after another. He desired Roc-A-Fella Sports, Rocawear Apparel, and Roc-A-Fella Movies. He had more expansive ideas. However, Jay had a different desire. He desired authority, total command, and that's where the fissures began to appear. It was best said by Dame, "Jay and I weren't at odds about money. I was at odds with the principle." The majority of fans were unaware at the time that Jay-Z had begun making subtle behind-the-scenes changes. Jay was meeting with executives at Def Jam, the same corporate machine they had previously battled, while Dame was busy developing the brand. Dame claims that Jay began negotiating without alerting him, discussing leadership roles, ownership, and distribution. While Dame still believed they were on the same team, he was preparing his solo chess move. Thus, everything changed when Jay was offered the presidency by Def Jam. "I learned about it through the news," Dame remarked. "I knew it was true because of that." That was the start of the end. Dame felt deceived by Jay's lack of loyalty rather than the fact that he accepted the position. They had established an independent movement that refused to submit to the established order. Jay was now actually entering the system that they had battled to avoid. According to Dame, he didn't simply accept the offer, rather, he did so from beneath us. He believed that Jay had betrayed him, that the brother he had assisted in turning into a tycoon had exchanged their fraternity for business dominance. This is where it gets much more complex, though. Dame disclosed that Jay was taking steps to distance himself from Roc-A-Fella's other musicians over this entire period. You see, Dame had faith in Cameron, Beanie Siegel, Kanye, and Dipset, among others. He began to distance himself from Jay because he wanted to maintain the strength of the family. He didn't want to be responsible for the entire roster. He wanted a fresh start, free from Dame's voice in his ear. And that's when Roc-A-Fella broke up. Jay stole his name, his contacts, and his master's degree. The pieces, the artists, the office, and the memories were all left to Dame. But Dame insisted that it wasn't about jealousy, regardless of how the media presented it. It has to do with loyalty. He said, "I fought for Jay when no one believed in him. When the industry attempted to exploit him, I stood up for him. I ensured he was never treated disrespectfully. And he failed to ride for me the one time I needed him to." That statement struck a deep chord because it was motivated by pain, not hatred. It was clear that Dame wasn't resentful. He felt let down. Jay's success didn't bother him. He was upset that Jay had abandoned him. And that went deep for a man like Dame, who was built on loyalty and pride. The real beef started there. It was the betrayal, not the money or the boardroom. And trust, once it's been lost, can never be regained.
It didn't go left.
Okay, it didn't go left.
Why you think it went left?
Hold on.
What are you talking about? Roc-A-Fella?
Roc-A-Fella.
I'll go it.
The perception of why Roc-A-Fella ended is different. You're aware of this.
It's because Jay did what he did. He didn't want to pay $3. He made a move on his friends. It is what it is, bro. I don't want to talk about that.
No. All I'm saying is the perception of why Roc-A-Fella ended is not that Dame Dash wanted to move on and do something different. That's not, I believe you, that's not the perception.
Who cares?
But you're aware of that.
And sometimes you got to Machiavelli yourself to be left alone.
It didn't take long for the entire empire to collapse once the fractures appeared. The world witnessed Dame Dash and Jay-Z's transformation from brothers to business adversaries in real time. The conflict began discreetly behind closed doors before becoming visible to the general public. The same men who founded Roc-A-Fella Records on allegiance and street solidarity were suddenly avoiding one another at meetings, moving silently, and allowing lawyers to speak in place of brothers. It was like watching my best friend turn into a stranger right in front of me, Dame remarked. The Rocawear crisis was the pivotal moment. Dame and Jay co-founded the fashion brand in 1999. There was more to that brand than just clothing. It had to do with culture. Rocawear turned into the street uniform. Everyone wanted that Roc logo, from Compton to Harlem. However, that collaboration was as polarized behind the scenes as the label. While Jay was establishing business relationships, negotiating with financiers, and aligning himself with major companies, Dame was in charge of the artistic and cultural aspects. For more than $200 million, Jay eventually sold Rocawear to Iconic's brand group. Here's the twist, though. Dame said he wasn't even fully informed about the transaction. He claimed that Jay handled the transaction in a way that excluded him from the larger profit split. According to him, I built that brand from the ground up, and they sold it without my blessing. It seemed like deja vu, another power play in which Jay prevailed and Dame left believing that his loyalty had not been reciprocated. Even worse, the sale turned out to be the last straw for Roc-A-Fella. The artist began taking sides in the interim. After being taken under Dame's wing, Kanye West began to show interest in Jay. Although Cameron remained faithful to Dame, the label politics caused a problem. Speaking up, Beanie Siegel said he felt abandoned by both parties. Rocawear transformed from a cohesive family to a shattered business rife with implicit animosity and stress. The dynasty that had previously dominated the game began to devour itself alive.
Album and on Instagram.
Yeah, did you see that video?
Bittersweet.
Nah, I didn't see it.
He was in the barbershop, bobbing his head crazy to it. He said he liked it. He said he felt like he was a part of that. And he knows you're telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, what people gotta understand is I mean, nothing gonna change the way I feel about Damon. No matter no time or space, no separation or anything. I got love for Dame Dash the same way as I did before.
This is the crazy part. Dame continued to openly support Jay for years despite all of this. Even when others questioned him about the divorce, he refused to disparage them. However, it grew increasingly apparent as time went on. Jay would never return. He went on to work at Def Jam, rose to the rank of president, and utilized it to restart his career and create his own business, Roc Nation. Dame, on the other hand, continued to advocate for freedom, battle for ownership, and maintain her independence. "I didn't lose Jay-Z," he declared. "I preserved my soul, even if I lost a companion." Jay was making billion-dollar moves and appearing on magazine covers and in suits by the middle of the 2000s. Dame was working on startups, movies, fashion, art galleries, and his own businesses. However, the industry made its decision. Jay-Z was welcomed by corporate America, whereas Dame was branded as challenging. Every time Dame entered a meeting, folks had preconceived notions. "They blackballed me because I refused to bow down," he stated. "I'm not made for that kind of structure. I was meant to be a revolutionary." When interviews and documentaries began portraying Dame as the antagonist, the conflict intensified. Roc-A-Fella was wrecked by the loudmouth, the man who was unable to act politely in business settings. But you can tell he's not angry when you hear him speak. He's hurt. He claimed that because I refused to allow them to mistreat my people, they painted me as the villain. The shield was me, the voice was mine, and they all flipped when I quit defending them. Fans also began to take sides. Some claimed that Jay was wise to outgrow Dame, and to become the mogul he is today, he had to change. Others claim that Jay abandoned the man who helped him succeed to appease the same executives they had previously opposed, sold out, and sacrificed devotion for legacy. In any case, the bond had vanished. In business, they both prevailed, but in Brotherhood, they failed. Dame Dash had come to terms with being the underdog by the late 2000s. He transformed from a boisterous CEO at meetings to an outspoken industry rebel. He was no longer attempting to blend in. He intended to criticize the system that, in his opinion, internally ruined Roc-A-Fella. Dame stated in interviews that it was very clear, "Jay is not my adversary, it's the industry." But eventually, even he acknowledged that Jay had a role in the events that transpired. One of the most significant instances that reignited old wounds was when Jay-Z minimized Dame's contribution to his rise to fame in interviews. Jay began to act as though he was the mastermind behind Roc-A-Fella, excluding Biggs and Dame from the narrative. Dame began publicly retaliating at that point. "Don't rewrite history," he urged. "I made the financial commitment. I accepted the risk. The doors were kicked open by me. Don't pretend that I was the loudest person in the room." You see, Dame doesn't sugarcoat things. He always speaks with pride, emotion, and candor. There are times when the business world cannot manage it. He would uncover dubious transactions, call out executives by name, and warn artists not to make the same mistakes he did. And that's where Jay and Dame's ideologies really diverge. Jay gained expertise in the business world. Dame wanted to demolish it. Jay thought it was best to move silently. Dame thought it was important to fight loudly. The same objective, two distinct approaches. However, someone always feels deceived when those philosophies collide. Dame stated that Jay's willingness to put up with disrespect from those around him during the breakup was one of the most difficult things to comprehend. "All I wanted was acknowledgement, not money, just the truth," he stated. However, Jay avoided making amends. It never succeeded, even when individuals like Kanye West attempted to bring them back together. Dame claimed that every time he attempted to make contact, Jay retreated. That supported Dame's claim that Jay had no desire to get better. He desired to erase. However, Dame never questioned Jay's genius in spite of everything. He has consistently stated that Jay is among the greatest at what he does. All I want is for him to remember who made him that way. Only years of brotherhood may produce such a complex affection. It's audible in his voice. He doesn't despise Jay. He longs for the former Jay. "We don't need them," said the person who used to accompany him into rooms. "They require us." Dame made a significant statement in one interview. "Jay pursued being a billionaire. I sought freedom. Both of us achieved our goals." Many fans might relate to that sentence because it depicts two distinct routes to success. Jay became a shining example of business success, collaborations with luxury companies, the NFL, and international influence. Dame, who owns everything he touches, even if it means suffering losses, became the model for independence. And that's the reason their tale is so renowned. It's about the cost of power, not just who was right or wrong. In the process of achieving their goals, both guys lost each other. The tale of Dame Dash and Jay-Z still feels incomplete nearly 25 years later. You can hear the suffering underneath Dame's pride every time she speaks. Jay avoids answering questions about Dame like a wound he doesn't want to reopen. However, time has shown it. Hip-hop was eternally shaped by both men. They created more than just a label. They created a movement. Roc-A-Fella demonstrated to the world that making history didn't require a record deal. It was black greatness before the companies attempted to brand it. Dame has stated in interviews that he is no longer angry. He is simply disappointed. If we were truly brothers, why didn't we speak like men, he said. Why do we allow the media to narrate our story? That's the most painful thing. He is not seeking beef. He wants to find closure. However, Jay's silence tells it all. Perhaps Jay believes that the past is better left behind, or perhaps he is aware that he mistreated his brother. In any case, the distance between them is evidence that success can occasionally result in casualties. The fact that the culture still divides itself in this manner is amazing. Some move like Jay, quiet, clever, and focused on business, and some move like Dame, loud, fearless, and driven by profit. In reality, though, the industry requires both. Roc-A-Fella wouldn't exist without Dame's enthusiasm. Roc Nation wouldn't exist without Jay's vision. Their inability to live together in the same world is tragic. This is where it becomes poetry, though. They both continue to reflect one another even when they're not communicating. Jay adopted Dame's hustler mindset to rule the corporate world. Dame put Jay's focus on his independence after learning it. So the template endured despite the friendship's demise. Every modern artist who talks about ownership and power bears their imprint. In one of his most genuine quotes, Dame put it best. He sold the pond after I showed him how to fish. That single line explains the whole matter. He handed Jay the tools, but he didn't turn around once Jay gained possession. Their story is timeless because of that. It goes beyond rap. It's about loyalty versus ambition. Jay-Z and Dame Dash are ultimately two sides of the same coin. We learned how to struggle for freedom from one. We learned how to succeed within the system from others. They each leave their marks on history, but at the expense of brotherhood. And for that reason, this story continues to resonate. It's not just about what they created, it's about what they lost. Even though Dame would never forgive Jay and Jay might never apologize, the game would not be what it is today without Roc-A-Fella. They inspired generations, changed the norms, and showed that black men were capable of owning, leading, and conquering. They just couldn't stay together long enough to appreciate the tragedy.